South Africa versus Argentina has just finished, and these are my initial thoughts immediately following the game. So this is going to be a bit of a stream of consciousness out of my head, and do likewise in the comments. Get stuck in, because and here's your spoiler alert if you are waiting to find out the results. It was a close one. Well done, South Africa, for the win. The Argentina will be kicking themselves. There could have been their first ever win on the high veld. Wasn't to be. A 1-point victory in what was, let's be honest, quite an ugly game of rugby. Not a lot of redeeming qualities to that one. I mean, for one thing, it went on forever, didn't it? Here we go. I've got a little picture here for you. This is Tom Hanks when he started watching the game between South Africa and Argentina. This is Tom Hanks at the end of the match. Went on forever. I mean, I'll put it this way. So in the UK on Sky Sports here, they had the highlights of the game earlier between Australia and New Zealand. They had that scheduled at 6:05 p.m. and the game's just finished and it's 20 past 6. So went on forever, and quite often that's a good thing. But no, it just meant it was a very stop-start game, partly because of injuries, partly because of just errors, lots and lots of errors, and a lack of accuracy from both teams, which will definitely be a concern. Just before we get into it, though, I just got to say how awesome this moment was. Oh, let me move out of the way. That moment before the game hadn't even started. This was the best bit. Everything before the game was amazing. 3 World Cup winning captains together. That was a lovely moment. And you add that to the passion that Argentina always bring for their national anthem. And I was getting very excited, thinking this is going to be brilliant. And then the wind came out of the sails straight away with that injury to Grant Williams. His first start for South Africa, and it lasted all of 16 seconds. And we've got to mention Lucas Poulos as well, the Argentinian lock. Both of them stretchered off in a very bad way. And I hope that they're both well enough to get back on the rugby field and don't miss out on a World Cup opportunity as a result. It was good that the cameras picked up on Grant Williams on the touchline towards the end of the first half. Just on this decision, actually, so a lot of people were quite upset with Andrew Brace, the referee. Definitely need to talk about him. We'll do that in a minute. But just on this decision, a lot of people thinking, how on earth could, was it Malia? How on earth could Malia not get a red card for this? He's leapt recklessly, and he's made contact with Grant Williams in the face. And it did remind me when I watched it, if you remember CJ Stander jumping for the ball and Patrick Lambie, I want to say it was, and they made contact. And I think, well, that was reckless and egregious from CJ Stander. The difference between that and what we saw today on Grant Williams was that Malia, I'm pretty sure it was Malia, correct me if I'm wrong, but whoever the Argentinian player was, he actually did charge the ball down. He jumped in order to try and stop the ball, and the ball hit him. And so sometimes, and I know it's, everyone's on about safety and removing head injuries, and I totally get it, but we have to remember and allow for the fact that rugby is a dangerous sport and accidents sometimes happen. And I actually thought, for what it's worth, the referee got the decision bang on in the case of Grant Williams. I would have liked the game to have been stopped a little bit quicker, but okay, fine. At least, hopefully, Grant Williams is going to be okay. It was a shame to see him go off. But yes, that's all I want to say is accidents happen. Rugby is a dangerous sport, and that's part of the reason why we love it. We hope nobody does get injured, but inevitably accidents will happen. But like I say, hope both players are okay. It was just a shame that it was so early into a first start for Grant Williams. So I was really excited about seeing him. And when you look at Faf de Klerk's performance on the pitch, I think this is one thing that a big takeaway from a South African perspective. Tell me if you agree or disagree with this. I think there are quite a few players that were starters in 2019 that aren't at that level right now. And it's got to be a bit of a concern for South Africa. Pieter-Steph du Toit, for example. I mean, he's a world-class player. He doesn't look the guy that won the World Player of the Year award a few years ago, does he? Faf de Klerk is not quite there. He did loads of really good defensive work. His kicking was not good today. And he just kicked away loads of possession in the second half. And Damien Diolande, we saw signs of him getting back to form that we know he's capable of, but he's not quite at that level. And at the very highest level, when you're trying to win a World Cup, a little tiny gap, and that has a difference between winning a quarter-final or not, or a semi-final or a final, or even in South Africa's case, because we know the pool that they've got, getting out of the pool at all. So there's definitely concerns that they're having to play players into form in these games. That will be a worry. What else can we say? Again, as I say, I'm just thinking of this off the top of my head. Let's talk about other players. The game was brutal. I've got to say, what I did enjoy about this was how full-blooded it was. And again, you don't want to see players going off injured, but what was it Julian Montoya's face when he was going off just before half-time to get patched up? I mean, these were two teams that were putting it out there and going for it 100%. And I totally respect that. And any suggestion that this is just tinkering and getting ready for a World Cup, not at all. This is the kind of game that, whilst it wasn't great spectacle, will get these teams ready for a World Cup from a physicality point of view. But both teams have got to be a lot more accurate. And when you look at the scoreboard, Argentina will be saying this is one that got away because they left 8 points out there in kicks and they lost by a single point and they dominated the second half. And it was, Marnie Libok that got the breakaway try against the run of play and really got out of jail from South Africa's point of view. But that is the mark of a good team. And that's the mark of a champion team as well. A team that doesn't play well and still manages to get the result. What else? I've just put little notes here. Malcolm Marx is a freak at the breakdown. I was really pleased to see him starting the game. And actually, Marx and Montoya are incredible hookers, the pair of them. And they gave it all. But what a freak at the breakdown. His low centre of gravity and his strength, Malcolm Marx, is ridiculous. I love it. There's a month till the World Cup. And I suppose at this point, what you want to be doing is just fine-tuning. Just kind of making little tweaks to get, like I say, those little tiny margins, the difference between winning a World Cup and not. But it feels like South Africa need to go away and do some basics, like catching, like handling, which that's what is surprising me. And Argentina in South Africa, it was a lot closer than I imagined it would be. And I can't quite make up my mind. What do you think? Is that because Argentina played well? Or is that because South Africa played poorly? You probably have to say a little bit of both. Although, like I say, if Argentina if they can click and take the opportunities that there was one where they had about a 4-on-2 overlap and the pass just went to deck. And a good team and an Argentinian team that are on form would have just walked it in. So concerns for both teams. But then again, I would also not get too down on either of these teams because Argentina suddenly click and take those chances and they're a force to be reckoned with. And as an Englishman, I can tell you I'm worried about that first World Cup game. Same goes with South Africa. A couple of players play themselves into form. You get some players in key positions managing the game well, and all of a sudden it's a totally different beast. Second half... First half, second half. South Africa in the first half were looking like they were trying to play quite a lot and they were making errors, but they were taking risks. And it came off occasionally. In the second half, it looks like they just went, right, we're not going to take any risks whatsoever. We're just going to kick. And I don't think that works. That's kind of the reverse of the way South Africa played. They used to play a big forward-orientated game in the first half, bully teams, beat them up a bit, and then go and let rip. And if you are going to flip the way you play, I think that's the way round to do it. Good to see Big Trevor back on the field in green and gold again. And good to, just the wheels of Marnie Libok is awesome. Just the gas on that guy is ridiculous. So let's talk about the referee then. Also Jesse Creel. I like him as a player. And I thought he was big defensively. So that in terms of players, personnel, Emiliano Buffelli, if he was on the field for Argentina, they win that game. So teams go into a World Cup, and this is like, I was thinking about this in the build-up to the Australia game. Pick a recognised kicker in your team. Have an 85% kicker if you want to win test matches. Simple as that. But there we go. It's amazing that you have to say it. So let's talk about Andrew Brace, the referee. So he looked unsettled, and he looked rattled because the players were rattled by him. And here's what I think's going on. I don't like criticising refereeing performances, so I'm not going to. But what I think this is a reminder of is the difference between Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere referees. I think this is a massive one to remember as we go into a World Cup. I watch a lot of English Premiership rugby. I work on it. And I watch the Six Nations, and then I watch a lot of Southern Hemisphere rugby. And what I've seen from a lot of the rugby championships so far is that Southern Hemisphere referees just let the breakdowns go wild. They just let stuff go. Quite often French referees do the same, actually. But you will quite often find British and Irish referees much tighter on the breakdown. And as a result, players who aren't used to that get quite frustrated quite quickly. And I think there's definitely a bit of what we saw. We saw early penalties against South Africa in the first half, and they were all going, what's going on? And then Argentina, pen. And it has such a big impact on the game. And I just think that this is one of the benefits of these games before the World Cup, is just getting used to the way that games are going to be refereed by people from different parts of the world. And it's not that one is better and one is worse. It's just you have to respect the fact it is different. And you can't be in a game moaning about the ref. You have to deal with the ref as he is out on the park. And that goes for Northern Hemisphere teams as much as Southern Hemisphere teams. But it is a factor. And the breakdown is the biggest area where that is a difference. Andrew Brace, I think, has got a lot of criticism. I don't like chipping in on the criticism of referees unless it's something obvious. In most cases, I can see what he was getting at and I can see what he was doing. Would have liked Grant Williams, the game to have been stopped a bit quicker for his injury, but you have to only assume the referee didn't see it. But there we go. And there we are, back to the start, where I hope that those players that are injured are okay. Those are my thoughts immediately following the game. Scrappy, ugly, two teams lacking accuracy, lacking form, but not far off. And you make some tweaks and they'll both be players at the World Cup. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. I really hope, if I've not, this will earn your subscription. I've got loads more content coming during the World Cup, and I'll see you on the next video.